Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the session, Grid Connected Solar Rooftop. May I request Mr. Amit Kumar, Senior Director, Social Transformation, TERI, India, to please come on dais, sir. May I request other speakers to please come on dais. Mr. Ashish Agnihotri, Business Development Leader, North, Oriano Solar, India. Mr. Bhaskar Deol, Founder, Mynergy, Renewable India Private Limited. Mr. Marek, Team Leader of EU-India Technical Corporation Project Energy. Mr. Neeraj Gupta, Principal Investment Officer, IFC India. Mr. Rajesh Bhat, Managing Director, Juwi India. Mr. Shirish Gaur, Director and Senior Fellow, Energy and Environment Technology Development Division. Mr. Tanmay, Head Standards and Research Skill Council of Green Jobs India. May I request Mr. Amit Kumar please proceed over the session.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So, the title of the session is about grid connected rooftop system. And if we look historically at the kind of percentage rooftop system has in overall pie of solar systems in India, it's rather low to the tune of around 10 to 11%. Whereas if you look at other countries, notably Germany, the US, Australia, there you will find that that percentage is much higher, to the tune of from 40% to 90% kind of thing. Now, as the name suggests, we are talking about grid connected solar rooftop system. So, as soon as we bring in grid into it, which is the stakeholder becomes very critical to the success of these systems, and that is DISCOM, the distribution company. But unfortunately, because of proliferation of solar rooftop systems, DISCOMs are also feeling rather threatened from the point of view of their businesses, their business viability, especially considering the fact that solar rooftop systems are actually attracting more and more industrial and commercial players into fold, and that's where most of the revenue generation happens as far as distribution companies are concerned. Now, this is a phenomena which is not limited only to India. In fact, worldwide, distribution companies are actually facing this issue, whether in the States or in Germany or otherwise. And also, they are resisting also in many ways. For example, in the US, in many of the states, many distribution companies have started levying different kind of charges for the customers who are actually availing solar rooftop systems. So, in a sense, they are trying to create barriers for that kind of thing. Now, some of the concerns that distribution companies have are actually quite genuine, and some are perceived. And what is required definitely is to see that how we are going to address those challenges. In fact, I would have very much liked a DISCOM also being represented in this panel, because then this would have made things complete. But the point is that there is no denying the fact that as far as business models are concerned, the scenario of the electricity sector worldwide is actually changing very drastically, and one has to actually take care that one gets attuned to that changing scenario. So just being tradition bound won't help. And some of the utilities distribution companies have actually started moving in that direction. There is a distribution utility in states who is actually has looking at the kind of market solar rooftop system is having, started its own branded solar rooftop business just to tap those kind of business opportunities which exist over there. And in Germany, one of the largest distribution company had actually tied up with one of the solar company, Energy, again to tap the kind of opportunities which these things now offer. So rather than being only as a resistive organization, it would be useful to see that how we can work together and bring this sector more on the growth path. Government of India has started some kind of incentive scheme for distribution companies, but the kind of feedback which we get, probably that need to be tweaked to make it more inviting and more accommodating for distribution companies to actually take benefit of that and in turn provide benefits in terms of strengthen infrastructure, in terms of increased capacities, and more importantly the change mindset so that solar rooftop business can take place in more accelerated fashion. Now, worldwide, residential sector has been at the forefront of solar rooftop revolution, unlike in India. So we need to dwell upon the fact that why it is not happening in India, whether it is a matter of affordability or perceived expensiveness of solar rooftop systems, or it's matter of awareness, or it's matter of financing. Consumer financing I am talking about here, because we are talking about residential sector, and the kind of doorstep delivery which we are getting accustomed to in many other fields. Whether those are kind of challenges which we are facing over here, or what are the main challenges that is not letting residential sector coming to a potential it is providing actually for that. So that is something we need to dwell upon. And very importantly, where all in this picture issues like skilling, right kind of skilling, the quality, the certification, the rating of installer, all those things which are not being talked about in greater detail now. But as we move forward, I think those also would become very critical. So where are we as far as those are concerned? So fortunately for me, I don't have to spend much time on this, because I have very enlightened panel with me, which is drawing actually from a variety of critical aspects of solar rooftop system, right from EPC to finance to skilling and to think tanks. So without any further ado, I would straight away go to the panelists to see that what do they see as far as solar rooftop acceleration deployment is concerned, and what are their recommendations in terms of taking it forward in more fast forward way. So to start with, I would like to invite Mr. Ashish Agnihotri, who is Business Development Leader of Oriano Solar India, who is one of the leading EPC. So Mr. Agnihotri.
Hello. Hi everybody. A very good afternoon to all of you. Mr. Amit Kumar has set a very, what should I say, apt beginning and the direction for the session. Solar rooftop is the segment which needs to be focused and is probably the weak link in India's armor. We have been doing pretty well on the ground mount segment, and rooftop is where we can really focus, within which probably residential is the last leg. Government and C&I probably have done their bit, and residential is an area where we can still kick off in a major way. In terms of broad numbers, if we speak, if we have an installed base of say around 12.5 gigawatts, 1.3 gigawatts would be from rooftop, and all these three segments would be one-third of the rooftop segment. Like C&I would probably around a 33%, government will be 33%, and residential will be the balance. These numbers are as per industry estimates and various organizations. I don't remember the name of the company I am referring to as of now. But the point I am trying to say is, if you talk about Australia, Germany, the broad numbers that they have done have predominantly come from residential rooftop, while the Indian model so far has been where large scale as well or have taken off. And if you talk about rooftop, here C&I and government is where predominantly the action is happening. In case we have done say 800 megawatt last year, this year again roughly 500 megawatt tender. There is a single tender which is again from the government side. I'm pretty sure that C&I segment will again do a similar number, but I'm not so confident about residential. So what do we know? The discussion point that we have today is what do we need to do to really take this number off. Again, as Mr. Amit was pointing out, one of the critical players has to be the DISCOM. Until unless we have a buy-in, not only a buy-in, but a very supportive role from DISCOMs, residential sector will probably not be able to fly in the sense that we are really looking for. We have a target, the government's targets are 40 gigawatts from solar rooftop. So, and if we do 1 gigawatt a year, even that number is probably not big as not as big as the desired. We have a pretty high required run rate, as we say in cricketing terms. So, if we really need to want those kind of targets to be achieved, we need residential rooftop also to kick off in a major way. So, one of the points could be probably on from the DISCOM side, net metering wherein as of now I don't think there are very many states which allow a rooftop connection higher than 1 megawatt. You might have a consumption of 7 megawatt, a requirement of 7 megawatt, you might have a roof for it, but you still can't use it. Why? Because the policy itself does not allow a connection which is higher than 1 megawatt. Similarly, you can't put up a capacity which is higher than your sanctioned load. So, you have a large warehouse, you have a large roof, but you are not consuming that much power. So, you can't set up a plant to provide it back to the grid. So, this is an area which again can be looked at and can help in the rooftop sector. Thirdly, there is some amount of banking that you can, in some states where we have regulations wherein you can do a banking only of the consumption in the day hours. Whatever consumption is happening in the night hours cannot be really offset through solar. So these are 2 or 3 things which can be taken care of by the DISCOM. In terms of banking, we have we were having a chat before the session. So what we were going to understand is that banking sector is really very keen and probably not very many players have really been able to understand and probably support the sector as the players want. But we were just going to understand that there are large plans from large banks, and the drill down will happen over a period of time. Third aspect, again, we have a very enlightened panel member about the skilling segment. If you want the skilling happen, if you want residential rooftop to happen, it has to have through a large distribution network. It has to go to each tier 2 town. There have to be competent people who are able to do it, not just install the panel and move away, but able to guarantee that the panel runs for 20-25 years, because solar is not really viable until unless it goes for it's a capital intensive sector. So if the plant is not running 10 years, 15 years, you are not getting the worth for your money. So you have to have competent people who are able to do it in each nook and corner. Right now, the system that we have for certification through MNRE, we probably have 2,000 channel partners from MNRE, but how good or what is their quality ratings probably is another segment that can be looked at. So if we have competent players, qualified players whom the customers can go to, that helps the sector to really take off. When I am assured that yes, these guys are good guys and I am paying large amount of money to them, so the plant set up by them will survive the whole hog, then probably that will be another incentive for the solar sector. So these were some of the points that I had, and returning back to Amit.
Thank you, Mr. Agnihotri. Let me turn to now Mr. Rajesh Bhat, who is the Managing Director, Juwi India. Mr. Bhat, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. So the concept is generally grid-connected rooftop. I will try and cover just little more than residential rooftop, because I think the audience that we have here It's connected to a mega event where smart roof is one of the concepts, or smart city is one of the concepts that is coming around. So I'll cover some of the concepts, and then I think let the other panelists talk about finance and skilling and other areas. So just to give you a background, we're part of a German company which has got about 4,000 odd megawatt worth of installation across the globe. So we have experience across the globe, both for solar and wind, and in India we have been there for last 6-7 years. We have done about around 180 megawatts of installation, both grid connect, free field, and rooftops for companies like Infosys, and small residential rooftops also. So from an experience perspective, I'll talk something about how do we get mass, and then how do we try and convert that into rooftops for residential. So if you look at the rooftop market itself, currently if you look at this, the estimate that we have is about 40 gigawatts, right? And then if you look at how do we scale up, you have probably 3 scenarios that I have put in here, and the current scenario says that the best we probably could do is about 8 to 10 gigawatts if everything goes well by 2022, and then we need to accelerate beyond that, and that's the scenario 3 if we need to catch up to 40 gigawatt level. But just look at the available rooftop that is across the country, and this is the data that was there in 2015. If you look at the potential that is there, there's no dearth of roofs. What it says is there's no dearth of roofs. So if you combine, typically a residential rooftop that is available is approximately about 8 gigawatts, and just by trying to address the entire potential, we have about 102 gigawatts worth of rooftop that is available if you want to do solar on rooftops. And then that potential probably will become about 128 gigawatt, of which about 12 gigawatts worth of rooftops is available for residential rooftops. Yeah. Again, if you look at from a price perspective, so there are 2 ways you could do rooftops on residential. One is you try and install you on a capex model, and another one is you install them on an opex model, where an investor puts in money and then he just evaluates how good he can evacuate from that grid into the grid, and then tries to collect money. Of course, there are other challenges there. So if you look at your bill that you get at your residences, it has got the first few hundred units at one price, which is at low price. But if we, in general in urban areas, if we add up all that, it's probably in the vicinity of about 5 to 6 rupees per unit. If you have an aircon, definitely these are the charges that you pay. What gets defeated here is people perceive that my energy charges at home is in the vicinity of 3 or 4 rupees, which is not true. It's much higher than that, because the slabs are created to make sure that you pay higher in an urban area. And so when you look at solar from a perspective, we already reached that parity. So from a cost perspective, I think it's not costly compared to the conventional energy that you do. And and the typical IRR that you see for rooftop systems, it could, if you look at residential, it could be upwards of 20%. Again, the only challenge then again is how do we make sure that rooftop picks up volume? How do we make sure that it gets financed? How do we strike a structure between the rooftop owner versus the investor? And so those are the challenges that we have in this area. Again, just to give you, so that's the market potential, and that's the return the investor can get. Just to give you some examples that are possible, whether it is a rooftop on a residence or whether it's a rooftop on a commercial building or industrial building, because at the end of the day, that 40 gigawatt that we have envisioned for 2022 will not just come from rooftop and residences. It has to come from a combination of industrial, commercial, and residential. And I think the volume will just then make things easier for an investor to come into this space. And so we, as a company, we have done quite a lot of projects, both from a perspective of, from an industrial project. I just want to show you one project. This is a project that we have done in Australia, where we have got a 10 megawatt of tracker project with a 6 megawatt hour of battery, lithium-ion battery. And this is feeding to a copper mine. Now, it may not be very relevant to a residential entity, but what I'm trying to say is that if you have an apartment which has got a diesel generator and which has also got the grid connected to it, we could find ways and means to make sure that that residential apartment has got some connected load anywhere between 500 kilowatt to 1 megawatt on that residential area. The trick is to make sure that the availability of energy to your consumer, which is the houses in the apartment, is relatively cost effective. All right, so I've just had 5 minutes. So let me run through this quickly. So what it says is there are various concepts that you could get in, and it just tells you that it is cost effective to put in solar rooftops, whether it's for residences or whether it's for commercial buildings or for industries. Just tries to show you that you probably have approximately at least about 25% saving in diesel whenever you do this kind of things. I just have to run through. So we have about 25% of diesel saving in these projects. Yeah. The second thing is also that on a same residential area, if suppose you use a fuel cell which is connected to diesel generator, again you have solar rooftops, you have a diesel generator, you could probably have the payback in as low as 2.5 to 3 years based on diesel abatement. So currently, let's say the apartments here are using diesel generators, you could convert that into diesel hybrid with solar fuel saver, and then your payback is something like about 2.5 to 3 years. And these are possible, right? The third thing I would like to talk to is lot of applications today are currently that what we do is we generate in solar DC and then convert it into AC, whereby we probably lose about 15 to 20% of energy. What we could do is we could probably connect DC loads like your computers, your lights, all these are DC, and then you connect them in such a way that eventually you are able to save at least about 15% on the entire consumption. We could talk about this in detail. Since I have only 5 minutes, I guess I can't talk much on this. But that's the application perspective. And so again, these are some things that you could, if you try and do that, your consumption patterns of all the diesel that is there gets reduced drastically. Again, the benefits of low voltage DC is that you could look at connecting and having backup for wherever you have issues with energy efficiency and making sure that you save money. And if you're able to do that, probably the amount of money that or energy that you could save is 30,000 megawatts across India in time to come. The other concept is again an ESCO model, where you actually look at the energy consumption in a building, whether it is a residential building, which could be big, or apartments, and try to convert into ESCO model by using energy efficient equipments. So these are various concepts as to how to accelerate from where we are to those 8 or 10 gigawatts worth of residential rooftops. Of course, in our pursuit to making sure that this is scalable, we definitely need to have make the entire installation aesthetically good with a good quality. We need to look at how we can reduce the generator consumption there so that they're not polluting, urge DISCOMs to support rooftop installation, and create regulation for ownership for the investors. Also look at how we can then migrate to more of mini-grid and off-grid installation for houses and communities, which is again a residential application. Work on low voltage DC, and that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhat, for very good overview, some very good case studies, and very interestingly bringing into whole discourse this issue of aesthetics, which personally I have not heard of any time in these kind of discussion. So now I will turn to Mr. Neeraj Gupta from IFC. Neeraj, it seems that there is such a huge potential for rooftop system. Returns are very good, it's very cost effective, and it makes all kind of senses. But then, what in your views is stopping it to move in a direction and with the speed which it requires to? With your experience as first aggregator of solar rooftop systems in India and with your advisory and finance background, we would like to hear your views.
Thank you, sir. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm for International Finance Corporation, and at IFC we are into providing financial support for various infrastructure and social sector projects, including rooftop solar and rooftop solar. And also I personally have been involved in advising governments on structuring these projects on aggregator model through public-private partnerships. So I'm just going to talk about two small examples for a couple of minutes and then get into what are the challenges as we see it. I think our journey on rooftop solar started way back in 2008-2009 when we worked with the Gujarat government. I think that was one of the first initiatives in the country on rooftop solar, where the Gujarat government wanted to convert Gandhinagar into a solar city. So the mandate was to structure a PPP where a third-party aggregator, solar rooftop aggregator can come in, aggregate rooftops in the city and generate power and sign the PPA with the distribution company. So we did that successfully. It was a megawatt scale, the first megawatt scale grid connected project in India, total of 5 megawatts. It was packaged into 2 projects. It's running successfully now. We face a lot of challenges, including challenges with the DISCOM, because the DISCOM there is a private company. So issues around what is it in their interest, why should they sign this PPA? We had to overcome a lot of those concerns. And in this project, the winning companies at that time were Azure and Sun Edison. And Azure approached IFC for financing, and IFC put its money also behind the project. The project has been working quite well. It was commissioned and it's generating power as envisaged. And then we did a lot of knowledge management work on disseminating the learnings from that project. We actually drafted the net metering regulations for the Forum of Regulators and worked with CERC in 2010. And based on that, the government of Odisha then asked us to implement the project. First, design the regulations. They were starting from a clean slate. They didn't have any regulations on rooftop solar in the state. So we worked with them on drafting the net metering regulations and then structuring a project. Again, that became the first grid connected megawatt scale project, PPP project, on a net metering basis in the country. So that also is now being rolled out. It's almost a 7 megawatt project across Bhubaneswar and Cuttack, packaging predominantly government buildings on a net metering basis. So we, as you can see, we've been involved in few state tenders. Right now we are working with the government of Maharashtra. My colleagues are sitting here who are leading this project in Maharashtra, working across 7 large cities. Again on a net metering basis to develop the business model, work with the regulator to refine the regulations, some of the issues that the previous panel members pointed out. We are working on a large scale in Maharashtra right now. We're also looking at an aggregating facility, sort of a line of credit for the sector right now. So what are the challenges as we see it? And I'll try and limit my points to the residential rooftop sector. I think as a speaker before me made the point that we have come to the inflection point where the business case seems to be there. The tariffs are going down rapidly, as you know. Just a few hours back, if you have been keeping in touch with the developments, the solar tariffs have again crashed to 2.44, I think, 2.44. So rooftop solar obviously will be more than 2.44, but it's safe to assume that on an average basis, rooftop solar tariffs will be probably less than or just about equal to the retail tariffs that you and me are paying, in different cities in the country. There might be some states here and there which the parity is yet to be achieved, but the business case seems to be there. So what is it that is stopping residents from proliferating this rooftop concept, installing rooftops on their roofs, panels on their roofs, and trying to save money? I think there are a few issues. The opportunity is humongous. For households, for channel partners, and I do think that this is game for small and medium-sized companies because there are tremendous risks involved. You know, for a lender such as IFC or any other commercial lender, the risk of ensuring how do we assess whether the rooftop developer, you know, the company sitting here, whether they'll get the payback or not, whether they'll get their cash back or not on a monthly basis if they're doing it on an OPEX model. If they're doing it on a CAPEX model, they don't really need long-term finance, but they're also, from an operator's point of view, it's difficult to figure out whether they will get paid or not, how soon they will get paid. And I think behind that there is a fundamental concern that for a resident in a city like Delhi, even if I know that I'll probably end up making a saving of a couple of thousand rupees every year or a few thousand rupees every year, I'll be scared. Why should I invest in, you know, probably a lakh or more than a lakh rupees on a panel, and whether the savings will actually be achieved or not? Are there guaranteed savings being ensured by the operator? So first of all, I need to mobilize that 1 lakh rupees if I am choosing the CAPEX model. Where do I get that finance from? Not everyone will have a 1 lakh equity. So we need to think about this as a creation of the whole ecosystem which will support and encourage proliferation. And I think people are taking steps, the government is taking steps, there are different financial institutions which are taking steps to make available these kind of finances, for example, to the operators. But obviously a lot more needs to be done. The second aspect is, I think, aligning the regulations between different states. So right now, the whole issue of banking electricity, surplus power that is generated on a rooftop, in some states it's supposed to be banked with the DISCOM, and at the end of the year, if it's not consumed, it's free. So as a consumer, which is as a resident, if I'm a power generator, I end up losing quite a lot. And especially if someone mentioned about warehouses, my rooftop is large, then is there a way we can incentivize that generation and so that the person gets more savings or makes more profits? There are some states which are allowing this, and there are some states which are actually making it very, very attractive. You know, one particular state allows banking of power, and if there is surplus power, then that is fed into the grid at a particular rate, which is quite attractive. So I'm not really advocating that. All I'm saying is it's some sort of alignment so that the risks are understood well by all the stakeholders, particularly the equity, the investors as well as the lenders. I think that will help this sector quite a bit. And I think the last point is the back-end systems and processes. There are nodal entities in each and every state. They are right now struggling a little bit, but each of them has good intentions to make sure the structures and processes are well aligned to encourage rooftop proliferation. So what I'm talking about is really the back end of what happens if I want to install a rooftop panel. Where do I go? Are there forms and templates available? How do I apply to the DISCOM, for example? Is there a standard connection agreement available for net metering? What forms do I fill in? What happens once I fill in the form? Which channel partner do I approach? As a resident, I don't know about solar at all, right? We've had experiences with solar water heaters, and that has also not been very good. So the whole system of this channel partners, someone mentioned about quality of channel partners, the regular monitoring of channel partners. Are these channel partners available in different parts of the city? Do they have service centers to service this? I mean, we talk about service centers for different electronics and all these. Here we're talking about a much more critical thing. Someone is actually going to generate power on my rooftop. So I need a very solid support and a service center which is available to me round the clock in case there is some defect or some emergency, God forbid. So I think we're talking about that structures and processes is very critical, and again, I think, as I mentioned, people are taking steps. We ourselves are working with two cities, Thane and Bhubaneswar, to ensure these systems and processes are put in place. So I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj, and thank you for bringing in two very critical aspects in this whole discussion. One is how to effectively address risks which are perceived or which are real at different levels, and also as far as residential sector is concerned, how to ensure that there is reasonable quality as far as the complete supply chain is concerned, the quality of installation and quality of different kind of things are concerned, because those are the kind of thing which for individuals matters very much, and which for individuals actually becomes very difficult also to manage. So with that, I will now turn to Mr. Bhaskar Deol. Mr. Bhaskar, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be sharing the panel and the stage with such experts, and both from civil society as well as industry. So thanks very much. My name is Bhaskar. I am the founder of Mynergy Renewables. We're a new company specifically established to work in the rooftop energy space. The way Mr. Kumar has sort of framed this discussion, so maybe if I can take the first few minutes of my intervention talking a little bit about where we are today as an industry. I'll specifically focus on the commercial and industrial segment as well as the government sector, and then maybe try to summarize in terms of what does that mean for residential and how can we reach the kind of scale and the market penetration that the more mature markets have seen. So just to give you a quick introduction about Mynergy. So we were established earlier in 2016 with a focus on financing for commercial and industry players. We've done some initial work in both Rajasthan as well as the NCR region, and our approach very much is to see how can we as a company help our customers get access to financing, which helps them get over the hurdle of switching to solar. And specifically what that entails is either transaction advisory for them getting debt or raising equity, and then also helping our customers themselves get either OPEX finance or even debt for direct implementation of rooftop solar. So going back to where we are as an industry, I think it's quite clear to everyone that the India solar story is booming right now. The sector has significant tailwinds. Obviously, there's also a lot of competition, as is evident by the very aggressive pricing that we have seen. The 2.44 rupees per unit announced today, just being a very recent example of that. Also, the particular context that we have in India, wherein you have the inverted subsidy structure, means that so far all the implementation that we've seen has been limited to primarily commercial, industrial, and government. Now, why is that important, and what does this mean for India? If we take a look at any of the mature markets like Germany or the US about 10 years ago, I remember when I was an analyst with a private equity fund in the UK, we were looking at the Solar City model. And what Solar City had figured out at that point was how to utilize the tax equity policy or the support that the US government had, and converted that into issuing a series of bonds that could leverage tax equity, and using that funding install rooftop for residential homeowners in California. If we look at similarly the case that is emerging in India, we are seeing now that there is a healthy competition in the rooftop space between CapEx-driven installations and OPEX-driven installations. So the question that we haven't really addressed, or we haven't really figured out yet, is what will the business model that is specifically needed for India look like going forward? Will we have the approach that California took, wherein at one point of time 80% of installations were happening in what we would call in India an OPEX approach? Or will we see a new sort of a business model emerge, wherein residential customers, commercial customers will essentially be going to banks where they already have existing relationships and pretty much be financing their rooftop installations as they would typically be taking on any corporate debt. So the speakers who went before me talked a little bit about approaches and sort of benefits of each one of these. I think the variable here really is, given that the pricing have come down so unexpectedly quickly, I think that really puts a lot of pressure on the industry in trying to figure out what is the business model that we would need to develop in India that would work for India, given the policy landscape and the other landscape. So a couple of other areas where, of course, a lot more needs to happen so that we can really achieve the scale or the ambition for India's rooftop targets. Of course, policies such as net metering are extremely important. The time it takes for a project to convert is extremely important. The honor that the PPAs that are signed or about to be signed are honored. We were just having a conversation earlier this afternoon about L1 bidders not being able to sign PPAs just in anticipation that 6 months down the road the bids would be lower. So a lot of these factors may end up having an inadvertent chilling effect on growth in the rooftop space, and I think these are very much things that we all as industry, civil society, government need to look out for. There is a significant push from the government on the rooftop sector. There is about at least $1.1 billion which is on the table for concessional financing, support from KfW, from World Bank, from ADB. All these institutions are working with some of the most well established lenders such as IREDA, Punjab National Bank, SBI, in promoting rooftop solar at concessional rates. Now, what is the approach that these entities will take? Where do they find the comfort? I think that will be driven by some of the issues that we are talking about here around net metering, around the maturity and the comfort that they get looking at business models such as RESCOs. So, in summary, I would say the business model that we would need to develop for India needs to be developed keeping in mind our conditions here. What's definitely not going to work is trying to take a project finance approach and trying to have a scaled down version of it and thinking that that will apply to commercial and industrial and even residential. My colleague from IFC talked about a lot of thinking that's going on behind the scenes around aggregation of rooftop projects, so aggregating projects at commercial entities, aggregating them at for industrial facilities or even residential customers will help move towards getting the right sort of low cost financing that will help deliver the low cost proposition that solar has to the end customer. Having said all of this, I personally view the future of the rooftop sector in India very much sort of a blue sky, in the sense that will financing for rooftop end up taking the route of auto finance? We don't know. Will there be a lot of very large players who get very low cost funding, who are specialized, they operate as RESCOs? That is another possible future. Whether we have very large well capitalized facilities such as the aggregation facility, that could be another approach. Working through hundreds or thousands of small and medium enterprises working at particular cities level or even rural levels, that's sort of a fourth possible outcome. So of course I think the efforts that we're all putting here as part of civil society, government and industry are going to drive this, and we as part of Mynergy are looking specifically to focus on the financing piece of the puzzle to help address these gaps. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskar, and especially for assuring us once again that as far as this segment of business is concerned, the sky is the limit. And also highlighting the fact that for India, for solar rooftop business, we would require specific appropriate business models to be developed. It may not happen that the model which has been tried out elsewhere would also be successful here. Now, just to bring in more global perspective and perspective from European side, I would request now Mr. Marek Zaborowski, who is team leader of EU-India Technical Cooperation Project, to provide his views on this subject.
Can you help me to find the presentation? Thank you for inviting me to this session. I'm an outsider. I'm from Europe, and I shouldn't say anything about India because you know already everything. You are the best probably, and this is the center of the business. But on the other hand, I'm sitting at the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. I'm
together with my team, we are assisting I'm sorry. This is not this one. The other one. You can stand directly. So we are sitting at the ministry. This is very important because we are in the center of the decision making, and there's as I said, I'm a team leader, and there are three members of the team. I'm very proud that I can work with so knowledgeable, hard-working people. So I'm impressed by the ministry, by your government, and by you, by Indian people. I really have very short presentation showing what we are doing, just for, yes please, yes this one, just for the sake of information. If you have any problem, you can always call us. You can actually now we don't have telephone working, but I hope that in a few days it will work. Anyway, you can try to call us. We set up MNRE rooftop cell. Actually, together it means European Commission and Indian government. This is EU-India cooperation project, and probably there will be no more such projects in the future. This is one of the last projects, and there are my heroes, Gagan, Mrinal, and Atul. They are sitting there, so you can chat with them later. We are talking about, we are working on implementation of roof-connected program. And there are a few obstacles, many barriers. There are technology barriers, financing, administration, marketing, distribution, information, and the person, the investor who would like to invest in photovoltaics, it's really scared sometimes, especially residential investor. So what we are doing, we are trying to break these barriers, and we are working on marketing. We are inviting business stakeholders to cooperation together with national renewable energy laboratory from US. We are planning to prepare market study. Already we have learned a lot about the market, and we can say that for private people transaction costs could be too high to reach the deal. Administration barriers. We are working with stakeholders, with technical agencies, with officials from the ministry to simplify processes. It's not easy, but you should know that ministry is already aware about the problem. There are technical barriers. For some people, these technical barriers for the moment are invisible because everything is on the market, but some technical standards, some technical parameters are very important, and we are working with the ministry to overcome these barriers. Also, maybe this is last but not least, something like awareness and information. This is extremely important. We are providing webinars, we are writing articles, we provide mobile applications, we have a website, we are working on spin portal, but all this is not enough. I think that the information trainings everywhere are very important. Yesterday we had a very interesting meeting with our friends from IFC, which I think, have wonderful, shining examples, and we were thinking how to work with discoms, and we found that, for example, in various levels of discoms, there is lack of knowledge, lack of orientation. So I think that this information and awareness is something very important. We have prepared information guide. We prepared something like mobile application, and we have other activities. So this is what we are doing, and please don't hesitate. Please contact with my colleagues. Why not with me? Because I'm from Poland, and I'm just going to Poland today, and I will come back in a month. So it would be much more effective to communicate with my colleagues. And we are working, as I said, on grid-connected scheme, and this grid-connected scheme can be divided into two groups. One is a commercial and one is residential. And I would say this residential is completely different than commercial. So I will just list things or barriers which I think that should be overcome. They are specifically dedicated or associated to this residential sector. So first barrier which we should have in mind, there are split incentives between owner and the investor, owner of the roof. Energy tariffs. Energy tariffs for the domestic sector are quite low. Alternative use of the roof. In India, people used to use roof for other purposes, not only for energy production. Many small projects. When we are talking about residential projects, there will be huge number of projects, very difficult to manage. Also, high transaction costs, and I would say double subsidies. It means that tariffs are subsidized, and also the investments are subsidized. And this is something what surprisingly can be beneficial for the market, because it can really stabilize prices. It means that government has some power, and this market could be predictable at least for a few years. So maybe this is too much hope. I put too much hope to this point, but I wouldn't say that it's really very bad. And perception of the PV. I think that residential investors do not believe in profitability of this business. So it should be done something in this with this. Thank you very much, and once more, Atul, Mrinal, and Gagal are there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zaborowski, and especially for bringing to fore two very important aspects. One is barriers to the marketing and standards and education. And when we are talking of standards and education, it's inevitable that I turn back to Mr. Tanmay Bishnoi. Mr. Bishnoi, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tanmay Bishnoi. I head the Standards and Research Division at Skill Council for Green Jobs. Coming to the end of the panelists, it's advantageous in terms of we have heard many speakers talks about various challenges and how these challenges can be addressed or what solutions can be provided to those challenges. So what we're going to talk about is, I'm going to talk about brief about what Skill Council does. What are the challenges to accelerate rooftop deployment? What is the training need analysis and filling the gap with respect to acceleration? So, Skill Council for Green Jobs is an autonomous society created by Ministry of Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and promoted by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. this is how the system look like. We work with the industry, taking input from them, taking requirements from them, doing a demand aggregation. What skills do they require at their level? What skills do they require at their subcontractors level? And how can they support them in quality installations? So few of the mandates which we do is skill gap identification and research. So we did about close to more than 100 stakeholder interactions with the industry and other stakeholders on understanding how or what are the challenges which are being faced, why there is only 1.3 gigawatt out of a 12.5 gigawatt market on rooftop. I mean, there's 40 gigawatt to be reached in next 5 years, and why are we only at 1.3 gigawatts? So we first of all identified there are some skill gaps which are existing, and many of the panelists have also featured that in. We're going to talk about that a little more. Then we develop different courses and curriculums for them, train the trainer programs for quality to sustain, and encourage maximum participations from across pan-India training institutions. So there is an affiliation and accreditation process for training partners to again maintain the quality aspects, so that ultimately what we are doing is once any skill development happens, it doesn't go just as a training program. It actually implements. For that, we do industry connect, we collaborate with the industry in developing the curriculums and the contents for these courses. Now, some of the challenges which we incorporated or which we addressed or which we found out during stakeholder interactions were penetration and spread of rooftop solar is low in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. There's difficulty to find skilled installers for quality installations, lack of know-how with respect to grid integration, apprehensions in financing solar rooftops, lack of structured skill development, assessment of performance and quality of solar installations. Now that's one of the biggest things which many of my panelists, fellow panelists also shared. Lack of technical entrepreneurs, which again, let me reiterate some of the challenges which were discussed by early speakers, like customer expectations, challenges, quality of channel partners, improving the quality of installations, assessment of rooftop developers, service centers, financing options, education and training for technicians, lack of knowledge of discoms. So all of these challenges, when we say, now these all can be addressed in terms of knowledge transfer. Now, we can talk more on about knowledge transfer because we've developed certain standards for targeted individuals. Now this is a skill gap which we found out in terms of in next 5 years, about 2022, it's about 6.7 lakhs which are required in ground mount, O&M, off-grid, combined solar sector space, and about 7.8 by 2025 with respect to the capacities we are talking about. So if we focus on rooftops itself, for 40 gigawatts it's about 4 lakh people. So these were the various critical roles which were identified when we were talking to industry, banks, financing institutions, developers, consultants, government stakeholders, and combined. So what we organized was that there is a lot of training programs going on for all stakeholders, but they don't match the requirements. Many of the quality programs are not good, not enough training institutes available to penetrate that market, not enough qualified trainers, no authority and mechanism to assess and certify skills, and upskilling programs of solar design simulations. Now that was another feature which was throughout all stakeholders. So what we did was we developed 6 standards on terms of skills. Installers for one, for different size of rooftops and ground mounts both, ranging from a small rooftop to a large rooftop where multiple skilled people are required or specialized people are required in terms of electrical and civil. Then we talked about entrepreneurs, rooftop entrepreneurs, because many a times when the customers or the clients talk about installations, people are not able to talk about technical aspects. They just talk about cost and that's it. And that is where the biggest challenge is for a residential client. When we talk of any residential client, either it's a 50,000 rupees or a 2 lakh rupees, it doesn't matter. It's one and the same thing, because ultimately 50,000 is also coming from his own pocket. So once he talks about what am I putting on my rooftop, without talking about
how it's going to behave, it's not going to invest in that. That's where we talk about entrepreneurship. Then we talked of developers and banking institutions where financing of rooftops is an issue. So we talked to at least 7 of those banks, like for example, State Bank, UBI, PNB, Bank of Baroda, IREDA, all of them we took inputs from them and developed the standard for solar proposal evaluation specialist, which is talking of financing solar rooftops. Then focusing on DISCOMs, we talked about solar rooftop grid engineer on how to integrate the rooftops with the grid. So I'm going to just talk about a little on what the installers are doing. It's a complete from end to end how to install a rooftop on a small scale at residential level primarily, which is focusing on MSMEs. Rooftop and solar proposal evaluation, we talk of any financing options, how to check site feasibility, technology feasibility and financial viability combined. Because these are the issues which we say when we talk of project financing or balance sheet financing. We need to be sure that the technicals of that project is short so that even if we're talking of non-recourse financing, it can happen later on. As far as the DISCOMs are concerned, it's about pre-commissioning inspection, post-commissioning, what are the frameworks, what are the regulatory challenges, how to handle the harmonics, how to talk about voltage fluctuations, and the likes. Many other critical job roles which are being under development to again accelerate the rooftop projects which are available on our website as well. How do we go about scaling is we talk to different industries, we talk about certain project locations, then we do an MOU with the industry with respect to that project, identify a suitable trading partner in that location, involve local people, and that's one of the key aspects of sustainable development of rooftops, because it's not going to penetrate throughout until unless local manpower is involved. We have 240 plus training partners and still increasing across India. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanmay, for detailing out the initiatives to take care of skill gaps which are there at different levels. Now I would request my colleague Mr. Shirish Guru, who is Director Renewable Energy Technology Division in TERI, to let us know his views. And I know, Shirish, that as an advisory to MNRE, you have been extensively working with banks, with different types of people. So with utilities, so what have been your understanding of the concern they have, and what are your recommendations towards that?
Thank you, Amit, and thanks organizer and also the audience, because this is again a last session before lunch. So, let me, I was just wondering where to start from, because most of the points have been discussed. We actually at TERI, we believe in creating solutions, and that has been our motto. So creating new solutions to tackle the problem which are affecting our sustainability, which are affecting our lives. And we started way back in 2010 around looking at rooftop as one of the business potential for Indian solar business. And of course, one of the earliest study we did with Shakti Foundation and Ministry was first to look at what is the potential, how it can be exploited, and what are the issues. And this essentially we started with a primary survey of consumers' perception, DISCOMs' perception, financial institutions' perception, how they look at it as a new business. And few findings, I think, which we, we could get that time, were very, useful in formulating further policies of ministry as consultant to ministry, and also working with banks like KfW, whom we worked with them to look at the, viability of their loan program, how risky it is and what are the issues and barriers. And one of the things which we could look at of course, then we started about 125 gigawatt huge potential. Technically, then ministry said about 40 gigawatt is something which we can easily do in 5 years, and that's how the program started. We looked at DISCOMs particularly because that has been perceived as one of the major bottleneck that time, because it is their business which is getting affected. And as you've seen earlier, one of the reasons why DISCOMs are not really enthusiastic about it is basically the market which is getting developed is market which they are actually depend on, and that's the market of commercial and industrial consumers who generally cost subsidize the subsidies of residential and particular residential and farming sector. And I think one of the issue which we have identified and some of the regulators do agree with us is the net metering system. Why Indian market is not developing and worldwide it has developed? Because worldwide, if you look at Germany, there is a fixed tariff given. So whatever I generate goes back into the grid and I get paid for that, or my bill gets adjusted by the DISCOM. But primarily the government is responsible to give you that money, and that actually becomes a very attractive investment option. Especially that time in Germany, it was much more attractive than putting money in bank or in shares, because it's less risky, because government is assuring you the returns for 25 years, that too. So a lot of pensioners and retired people have gone for solar rooftop as a constant source of income. India, it is a different case. Most of our regulators and policies are, as mentioned earlier, very, very restrictive. One, either it restricts on your consumption pattern, because you can't sell back extra electricity, you can't adjust extra electricity beyond a limit, and particularly for a domestic consumer who is paying a few rupees, like 2 rupees or 4 rupees a unit, this doesn't still make a sense. Because now the solution, one is of course gross metering to certain extent, because in net metering, again, if an industrial consumer is putting, and if he is putting something like 10% of his consumption, he is ultimately adjusting his higher slab tariff, which is what DISCOMs doesn't want, and that's clear barrier. Because if as you have slab tariff, so first 400 units maybe you are paying 4 rupees, but 600 and beyond you are paying 10 rupees or 12 rupees. And when you remove those units from 600 block in net metering system, DISCOM is really definitely not going to like it. And so you are just chopping it off at the top layer. In a gross metering, what is happening is DISCOM or whoever is paying you, it can be a payment assurance mechanism through central government or state government, it is getting adjusted across their all consumers, across their entire tariff structure, and that makes it a kind of viable model for DISCOMs. We did a lot of studies especially for DISCOMs. And then second problem for DISCOM is of course lack of money. So what happens is, although they are responsible by Electricity Act to supply you electricity, during peak hours you will have power cuts because they don't have money to buy electricity at peak hours, which are now shifting to noon period because of the air conditioning loads, particularly in summer when solar is high. So for DISCOMs like those in Delhi, people having rooftop is a profitable venture than buying electricity at 8 rupees and selling it at 3 rupees. So you might have seen DISCOMs like BSES or Tatas are going for promotional programs for rooftop solar. There is also need to develop different business model, which is integral part of and also incorporation of technology, because most of the new housing is coming as a multi-story housing. It's not individual bungalows. So you are actually talking of integrated solar system during the construction or design phase, and which can then integrated with, let's say, common loads like water pumping, swimming pool, or your cafeteria or lifts. So there are a lot of common loads which can be taken care of by solar systems, which can be beautifully integrated, as he said, aesthetically in the parking area or on the rooftop. Another barrier which is not discussed so far is municipal bylaws, because many bylaws do not allow you to have a solar system on rooftop with a gap between the roof and the solar system, because then it is treated as an additional floor as per the laws. So there are a lot of municipal corporations which have taken notice of it, and they are changing their bylaws accordingly. You can actually use it as a shadow, because that also reduces your heating load during summer. And then we are also working with Surat Municipal Corporation, Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation in promoting rooftop. And one of the brilliant thing which we did there with Surat Municipal Corporation is creating awareness through engineering students. So we trained about 400-500 odd engineering students across the city who are basically electrical engineers, and these students were given some stipend kind of thing or some voluntary allowance by the municipal corporation. Of course, that's one of the richest municipal corporations, and very progressive municipal corporations. And these students were asked to kind of explain the concept in their localities, in their housing colonies or nearby societies. And you will not believe, in 2 months of we launching our web-based application for filing an application for solar rooftop, there is more than, if I am not wrong, about 4 or 5 megawatt worth of applications were filed by the residents of Surat city. So I see there is a huge market and there is a lot of innovation happening. So some technological innovation, some business model. In our study we suggested actually for especially for rooftop, it can be an LED model which ESL is promoting, that bulk purchase. So you just do bulk purchase of solar modules and maybe inverters, and that can be done by SECI or that can be done by ESL also. And then you have this whole network of small timers but well trained, well educated installers who do not have to install money, put money in installation, but they are quick and they are effective in their area of command, like within the city or within the taluk or within district, and that's the way I think the market can be explored. Otherwise it is not, I don't think. You have to have some mechanisms like this which are really different. So with this I will stop. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Shirish. And it's very interesting to note that so far we have been fighting for net metering to come to saying that will push the sector, and now we are saying that actually we require gross metering. So with that food for thought, I think we are already eating into your eating time. So I am afraid that we don't have formal question and answer session following this, but I am pretty sure that over the lunch you would definitely be interacting with all the panelists which are there and able to gain from that. So with that I will request you to give a big hand to all the panelists who did a wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, and it's a wonderful session. Before we give thanks to the panelists, there is an announcement. Fleet Forum, it is a Geneva-based logistic organization. It is organizing a driver skill assessment workshop in conference room number D, which is just behind us, at 2 p.m. today. So I request everybody if you can just attend that. And I would like to thank you again, the whole panelists, for a wonderful session. May I request Mr. Amit Kumar to please hand over the mementos to all the speakers. Mr. Ashish Agnihotri, Mr. Bhaskar Deol, Mr. Marek, Mr. Neeraj Gupta, Mr. Rajesh Bhat, Mr. Sirish Kaur, Mr. Tanmay Bishnoi, and Mr. Kumar.